Members, it is time to start our meeting. I declare that we have already formed a quorum, so I call the meeting to order. For today's agenda, we have got two items for our discussion. Both of them were from the last meeting, that is the 22nd of January meeting. We haven't completed the deliberation for the sum of funds to be approved. The total amount is $42.984 billion. I just want to remind members that if you do have direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to our discussion items today, please, in accordance with the provisions under Rule 83A of our Rules of Procedure, disclose the nature of the relevant interest before you speak. I draw your attention to the provisions under 84 of our Rules of Procedure in relation to voting on matters that you have direct pecuniary interest. Item 1 on the agenda, PWSC 2024-25-17. That's in relation to the Capital Works Reserve Fund for the year 2025-26. The paper invites members to recommend to the FC to approve a total allocation of $41.6158 billion for 2025-26 for their block allocations under the Capital Works Reserve Fund, CWRF. This subcommittee, at our last meeting held on the 22nd of January, commenced the deliberation of the paper. Today, we carry on with the discussion. In attendance, we have the controllers or the representatives of the controllers of the relevant heads of expenditure. The list of public officers in attendance has already been uploaded to our website for your reference. There are just too many of them. I'm not going to introduce them one by one. At our last meeting, 15 members already asked questions concerning the paper. 6 others are still on the list, indicating their wish to ask questions. Let me first of all invite members who are already on the waiting list to speak. First of all, Mr. Gary Zhang. Thank you, Chair. 4 minutes again. Yes, noted. Like other members who spoke at the last meeting, I want to give an overall comment, and then I have some questions on individual items. Of course, I support the request to allocate the funds. In the community, there has been a lot of discussion about our financial position, but then we need to invest for the future. In fact, many items in the paper are closely related to the daily lives of our people. They are livelihood items. So I don't think we should scale down the commitments despite the current financial position. We have to be clear about our problem. It isn't so much that we have a debt crisis. The government is really facing a problem of confidence in the market as well as the lack of demand. If we still ask the administration to scale down the commitment, I'm afraid it will be counterproductive. Therefore, I don't think I can support the argument that we need to scale down our capital works. Last time, members did talk about the amount of money requested. It is more or less the same as previous years, but still we have got quite a substantial reduction in relation to new items. Instead of $3 billion, we have $2 billion or so. I have to say that I find it regrettable. Let me come to specific items. For Wan Chai, we have got a few government buildings, and in fact, under 3100GX, a lot of the renovation items are related to the revenue tower as well as the immigration tower. I can understand that it is in the year 2027 that the buildings will be pulled down. I don't think we should allow the buildings to be vacant. We need to strike a balance. If officers do move in to use them as an office, we need to renovate them. But then it may cost $9 to $10 million. That's a huge sum. And in fact, let me talk about 3P2411. And in fact, it takes about $9 million, and then it will take quite a long time to complete the project, first half of the year 2026. But our understanding is that in the year 2027, the entire premises has to be vacated. In other words, it will only be put to use to a year or so, and yet it is going to cost us $9 million. Is it really value for money? And then which officers will move in, which not, and where do we draw the line, and whether it is reasonable to have such a cost? I want to know more about that. And then, if I may also talk about other items, you need to reinstate rented premises. So would that be covered as well? In 2 to 3 years' time, they have to vacate the premises. Must we and should we spend the money on reinstatement? So please clarify this position. Lastly, I found that many items would be were supposed to be completed in the year 2020 or 2023. So it seems that your paper hasn't been telling us the latest position. Has it been updated? Well, in fact, at our last meeting, there was a point made to urge the relevant departments to look at the justification or to fine-tune the mode of presentation. If I may invite Mr. Lee from the ASD to give us a reply concerning Mr. Zhang's question. Thank you, Chair. Well, regarding the project, I think he's referring to the Office for the National Games. It is phased over a number of stages. For the floors 27 and 31, they will be completed in 2027. In the year 2025, it's located on the 29th floor. In March, it will be completed and it will be handed over. As to whether there is an element of reinstatement cost, well, this sum of money doesn't cover that. And then thirdly, it was said that there are still some items that have outstanding sort of sums to be paid, where we need to fine-tune and wind down the project. It appears that they have been completed a long time ago, but then we need to get all the documentation. We check and must be satisfied that we are satisfied before we will finalize the payments. Well, so reinstatement is not to be included. In other words, when they move out, we have to pay for that. Well, they will be demolished, so I don't think we need to care about reinstatement. So our own premises, and they will be demolished. So no need for reinstatement costs. But what about renting premises in the private market? I think we need to reinstate them and pay for that. So I hope the administration should look at that. Well, the premises are still in very good conditions. Perhaps there's no need to remove the furnishing. It is not environmentally friendly. So I hope departments will be more proactive. Don't just follow the rule book and try to take off the furnishing when you leave. This is indeed not good for our environment. It is a waste. Next, Ms. Lam So Wai. Thank you, Chair. Well, the global economy is in a bad shape and we have a deficit in the public coffers. Now we talk about the Capital Works Reserve Fund and we are being asked to endorse $41 billion. I hope government departments can be clear about the details of the projects as well as the timetable. For the Area 77 of Chang Kwan O, a water sports center, it will need $11 million for investigation and consultants fee. For this particular water sports center, it's been on the drawing board for 13 years. in the year 2017, it was included in the Policy Address 5-year plan. Well, it was expected to be completed in 2020 for the technical feasibility study report. Now, for many years, for recreational and sports facilities, I think the district needs have been overlooked. We waited for 13 years. I just wondered if the government can tell us more. For this particular item, there is investigation. How long will it take? How many more years must we wait before we can get the water sports center? And then a question about the drainage project. Last year, we had a number of rainstorm signals, and there were serious flooding incidents in Kwan. So I would support drainage related projects. But then for 707, we have got repetitions. It is said that we would be upgrading the structural integrity of the Kwan system, and it will cost us $15 million. And then for item 10, and that's about the box culvert for rain water or storm water. And then it will again cost us a lot of money, over $10 million. How come that the two items seem to be overlapping each other? And then there's one other concerning Shun, and then this about the structural integrity of the system there. But it seems that you do need another investigation. Why? Mr. Lee from the ASD, regarding the first question first. Well, from the Water Sports Center in Kwan, Area 77, in quarter 4 of 2023, we engaged the consultants. So work started in the 4th quarter. Well, there are two parts to it. First of all, the CDD has to carry out certain items along the coast, and prior to that, investigation has to be carried out. We have to interface with them, and we'll be sharing the data. Upon completion of that, and we hope that in the year 2025 Q2 that will be completed, and then arising from the investigation, we'll check the progress, because it so happens that it is along the coastline. That's the latest precision. Thank you. When are you going to complete that? When can we make use of it? Now, we would like to have tourism everywhere. This is supposed to be a water sports center. When can we see it being commissioned for public use or public enjoyment? Mr. Lee, we haven't yet got the timetable. We'll have to check how we are going to stabilize the coastline before we can build the water sports center. So we are talking to the CDD as to how we can expedite the project for early commissioning for public enjoyment. Well, in the past, we did consider having one being carried out first before the commencement of another. Now we're going to combine the two into a single project. That's our idea. As to the timetable, it depends on the outcome of the investigation report, and then we can then have a more firm timetable at the next stage. Next, Mr. Lee, Deputy Director of the DSD. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member, for your question. Let me first of all talk about the structural integrity arrangements for our sewers, etc. Now, for the sewers as well as the rainstorm mains, we have got over 2,000 kilometers length every year, and in fact over half of them have a lifespan of more than 30 years. Well, we are doing it gradually in relation to the enhancement of the structural integrity. You talked about Kwan, and in fact we will be redeploying the resources, and we will go to the sewers and drains to carry out the investigation. If it is identified that replacement is needed, then we will create project items so as to enhance the structural integrity. Well, the member referred to item 10, and in fact that's for Cyclone and Kwan, and that's about the storm water box culverts, and they are major items, and we want to carry out a condition survey. Upon completion of that, if necessary, then we will have a number of items over a number of stages to repair them. As to item 7, investigation has been completed, or the condition survey has been completed, and we found that some of the drains have to be enhanced. And so we have this specific item, and that's for Chang Kwan O. In the case of Sha Tin, it is similar. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Lok Chung Hong. Thank you, Chairman. So the CWRF relates to the daily livelihood of the people. However, we are now very concerned with public spending, and so we try our best to save up. I don't quite understand why some of the money is to be allocated. One of which is on page 10, head 703, subhead 3004GX. There are 3 proposed new items. Well, I do support police work. However, these are both related to police on the refurbishment of report room in Tin Shui Wai Police Station. We usually know that report rooms are not large in size, only 1 counter and perhaps a sitting area. But the refurbishment costs 27.58 million and 26.7 million in Ma On Shan Police Station. I don't understand why there is a need. And then in Stanley Prison, refurbishment of Hall D, also 25 million. And then 3106 GX Yuen Long Ha Village public toilet. I always go past that public toilet. I don't think it's very old. I use that quite often. So, but there is to be improvement works. It costs 16.9 million. So my question is, and then the page 36 on the work on Tuen Mun bypass under head 706 sub 6101TX. Well, I'm sure that many views have been submitted on that works. I would like to hear about the latest enhancement of that works. Mr. Lee, can you please take the first couple of questions? Thank you. Mr. Lee. On the report rooms at 2 police stations. The report rooms are quite old, and in order to meet new generation requirements of report rooms, we will need to refurbish them. We need to ensure that there's electricity, lighting, air conditioning, and we also need to provide a temporary report room while refurbishment is under progress. And actually, you can see that it's 20 million is similar to that of similar projects. So your topic 800 square meters in size. And for Stanley Prison, that is Hall D in Stanley Prison to refurbish interior and exterior and some of the staff rooms, and also to fix some of the water leakage. We also need to enhance electricity, water and lighting systems, and that is also similar to the price because this is actually a size of 3,000 square meters. Now on Ha Chun. The public toilet in Ha Chun. The Ha Chun Sea Vegetable Market Office public toilet will cost about 16 million. There would be a male and female toilets and a universally accessible toilet. This is to be improvement made to the public toilet, and we're going to adopt the MIC method. And this cost is also similar to other scales of public toilets. This is 100 square meters, and then the surface area is around 76 square meters. Chairman, I'd just like to add one point. Perhaps he can talk about the Tuen Mun bypass, and then I don't want to hear all answers mentioning about how the price is similar to previous prices. I'm not asking you to cut budget, but then I think there's actually a room for compression. We're actually not tendering for these projects. The public will think that this is very high in cost. I'm just giving you a few examples to see whether we can, when we vote for it at FC, to try to see whether we can further compress the price. Well, I think we have all mentioned this point earlier, that when we delve into the details and can see the detailed design, I'm sure the government will consider the cost. We need to strike a balance. Our papers are all open to the public. Now, even though there is a figure, if you want to win the bid, then of course you would try to do your best to cut cost. We need to find a balance in that. We request transparency. And we've been trying to achieve balance all along. There is competition amongst tenders for some of the projects. Even when they're larger in size, there is usually a gap between the projected estimate and the final cost. May I ask Mr. Zhong from the Highways Department to address the question on Tuen Mun bypass? Thank you for Mr. Luk's question. We are working on investigation in Tuen Mun bypass. We have actually gazetted this in accordance with regulations, and currently we are working on investigation. Earlier, we have received many comments and submissions for the public, especially on the preliminary design on the ventilation of Tuen Mun bypass. We are currently seeking the advice of experts to try our best to optimize the ventilation. And upon completion of investigation, we will then kick off with the design. Next, Dr. Simon Lee. Thank you, Chairman. I support the approval of the allocation. We do need investments for a smooth operation, and even though the economy is slow at the moment, a lot of the estimates are related to livelihood of the people, and I support it. I only have reservations on one project, which is on the Khao Yi Chou Lake. The first member who asked questions also raised the same point in relation to the future development of the Khao Yi Chou Lake. And with the slow economy, we may need to consider whether this is really a priority project. It could actually be postponed to a later stage. Even though some arrangements or designs have been made, we do not want to, when the project finally starts construction, the designs may already be outdated. and we would then be wasting money. Well, some members have also said that it's not actually appropriate for large projects to be broken down into smaller projects to try to go around the approval of the electrical. Mr. Ma from CDD, please. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your question. The Khao Yi Chou man-made island we actually submitted an EIA report at the end of last year. A lot of work has to be done. There are two roads leading into Lantau Island, and there are also advanced works to be started at Khao Yi Chou. And when we move on to the next stage, we consider how to move forward, and we do need a certain information and reliable data to decide on the way forward. We must possess enough reliable data for reference to consider how we are going to move forward in this project. I agree with members, but there is still a lot of work that needs to be done at this early stage. Thank you. Well, this is a very important project, and are you trying to go around the electrical? Actually, it's not going around the electrical because it still needs to gain our approval. Next, Mr. Benson, look. Thank you, Chairman. We are facing huge deficits, and therefore every penny counts. I have two concerns. First, Head 7055, Subhead 5101 DX. I see that there are, amongst the ongoing T items, there are 10 that are providing new toilets or refurbishment of old toilets, leading to a total of about 130 million for 4 toilets. I always visit country parks and, of course, use the public toilets. But we are now faced with really heavy deficit. Do we really have to spend that much money on public toilets? Under Head 703, Subhead 3101 GX, there are other cheaper options for a project for public toilets, about 15 to 16 million. Why do we have to reprovision the toilets and not just to? Why do we have to reconstruct them and not just to enhance these toilets? At country parks, we see many mobile toilets or temporary toilets. Well, under such deficit, should we actually consider these options instead of reconstructing the public toilets? In 2021 to 2022, the budget allocated about 500 million to improve facilities at country parks. So are we actually allocating that this time as well? And for Head 703, Subhead 3004 GX, there's actually the refurbishment of the baggage claim area at Kai Tak Cruise Terminal. That's about 30 million. Can you elaborate further on this project, because the Kai Tak Cruise Terminal does not see high passenger flow. Is there a need to really refurbish the baggage hall at the moment?
First of all, shall we invite Mr. Yip from the AFCD, or rather Ms. Yip, sorry about that, Ms. Yip from the FCD, would you like to answer the question first? Thank you, Chair. Regarding the country parks, let me give an overall reply as to the enhancement of facilities there. In the year 2010, $500 million were set aside for enhancements and improvements covering different areas, including public toilets. In addition, public toilets, we've got other facilities that we want to look after. Say, for example, the viewing platform at Bo Bin Zhao, as well as other revitalization items. We are also trying to get money for the treetop adventure facilities, as well as the refurbishment of the historic relics. And altogether, we have got over 20 different facilities to be covered. As to the question of public toilets, how come that some of them have to be reconstructed? Our plan is that 6 have to be reconstructed, while others are newly built public toilets. It's a matter of the functions as well as the size of the public toilets. For Bryce Pool as well as Dai Tam Duk, the public toilets are very popular, highly utilized, as there are many visitors. Well, 30 years ago, they were built and they can no longer meet the modern day demands. So it will be difficult to rely on improvement to fine-tune them. And they're really outdated. They are not flushing toilets, and we believe that we should deploy a better way to treat the sewage in situ before disposal. On the face of it, you may think that it is expensive, but then we spend about $20 million each. This is because we have to demolish the existing toilet, and then you have to look at the location itself. Some of them are not quite accessible, and so the mode of construction, etc., would also add to the cost of the construction slightly. But then, in light of the needs of the citizens as well as the visitors or tourists, well, usually they say that the environment is fantastic, but then they really want to see substantive improvements to the conditions of the public toilets. Well, when you reconstruct the public toilets, would you be providing temporary facilities? Will the amount of money asked for cover that as well? If public toilets are to be reconstructed, well, they're really popular. We have one in Bryce Pool Road, Dai Tam, or even the one at Wan Chai. They're really popular, and we do provide for temporary toilets right next to the existing sites. But then they would cost much less, relatively speaking. ASD, Mr. Lee, please. In the year 2013, we started to use the terminus, the cruise terminal, and then in line with the Tourism Commission's effort to promote tourism, we want to refurbish the baggage hall. So the baggage hall, as well as the lighting, as well as the floor slab, will be covered. Over a dozen of public toilets, etc., will be covered. And then on the second floor, we have the VIP lounge, and then the ceiling as well as the walls have to be refurbished. And then there's the North Podium Garden. Some of the planters have to be refurbished, and we have to repave the floor, and we have to improve the lighting. Next, Mr. Kwok Wai Keung. Thank you, Chair. Many colleagues talked about the CWRF are actually there to serve the needs of our people. They are livelihood-related projects. We have got government facilities, government buildings, but then they are there to serve the public. So if they are popular with the public, it's a good thing, and then that means that regularly we have to repair and maintain them. So I think each and every one of them is justified, while at the same time we want to see whether further savings can be achieved. Now, 2 questions from me. First of all, Head 703, Subhead 3004 GX. Part 2, proposed new items. I can see that there are 2 items concerning the refurbishment of cooked food centers, like the one at Lin Wo Hui Fan Ning and that would cost us $28 million, $28.8 million. And for the year 2025, you asked for $5.76 million. Item 9, refurbishment of cooked food center in Applichow Market. The total project estimate is $17 million. For the coming year, you would like to get $3 million. So my question is, for refurbishment of cooked food centers in markets, it's a matter of touching up and ad hoc repairs, or whether it will be like the one in Sheung. So is it a matter of renewal rather than just refurbishment? Will business has to be suspended, and to what extent will the traders be affected? Have you already completed a proper consultation and liaison with the operators, and will they be able to go back there to have their business? And then head 704 4100DX DSD for drainage services. Of course, it means that we have to work on them in each and every district. What interests me is that the sum asked for is sort of almost identical for the proposed new items. Well, for the first two, they are for Taipu South, and then in fact the description is simple. Enhancement of structural integrity and surface conditions of existing sewers. $18 million being the project estimate, and then $3.5 million being asked for this year. The same is true for the second item in Tuen Mun. And then from item 3 onwards, for Diamond Hill, Sha Tin, Sai Kung, Kowloon City, Chang Kwan O, Chang Sha Wan, etc., etc. The project estimate as well as the estimate for the year 2025-26 are the same. Is it because the department has got a lump sum and so it is going to be divided evenly, or whether it is a matter of you just repeat the project district by district, and so you get these funny arrangements? Mr. Lee, and then the DSD. Mr. Lee Hong Lin from the DSD. First of all, SD. Well, for the two cooked food center, one in they are part of the market modernization project. We want to have a facelift. The walls, the ceilings, the furnishing has to be carried out. It's similar to the one in Sheung. As to whether we have talked to the operators, well, the FHD has indeed taken up the dialogues with them, and it will take about a year's time to complete the refurbishment. It is hoped that they will then be given a much better environment to operate from. Next, DSD, Mr. Lee Hong Lin. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members, for your questions. For the DSD, when we carry out our project estimates, we made reference to our previous projects. For part 2, that's about proposed new items. We have yet to actually create the project items. It is a matter of a preliminary project estimate. So it appears that they are identical, but it's not a matter of even distribution. When we procure the contracts, we will be inviting the tenders in parallel. So we have to revise the project estimates in due course. Well, I think there was a member talking about the district differentials. But here it so happens that it is a coincidence that all the figures are the same. So are you sort of only giving us a rough estimate? Because in theory they must be different. It is but logical to expect a different figure for each item. Indeed, Chair, you may find it a coincidence that the figures are the same, But then in a single district, we have got many drains and sewers, and when we go to the site, we carry out more detailed investigation, and then we may find that some are longer, others are shorter in length. But then for the time being, we are going to give you a rough estimate. In due course, we are going to fine-tune and revise the project estimate. Well, there was a previous question saying that if there are savings from the project estimate, what will happen to the money? Well, members don't need to worry. The government is not going to spend the money in a wasteful manner. For members who would like to ask questions in the first round, I think all of you have asked your question. And if there aren't other questions asking questions for the first time, we have a second round. And indeed, there's one member who wants to ask questions in the second round. Mr. Gary Zhang, 4 minutes. If I may follow up on the questions I asked previously. Some of the projects were supposed to have been completed a few years back. It was said that it's a matter of the outstanding payments, but it seems not really the case. There was a case supposed to be completed in first half of 2020, like 3101GX, FED 43. You need to spend $2.4 million in the year 25-26. I don't think it is a matter of outstanding payments. And then 007 jigs, item 752, $9.85 million in total. And you need to spend 1/3 of the estimate. There's $3 million, 2026-27. They were supposed to be completed in 2020. And then 3101 jigs, 30422. We're supposed to have it completed in 2023. Not a huge sum to be involved, but then it's a total of $200,000. But then 80%, that is $150,000, will only be spent in the future. So just a layman reading such a paper in the public domain would find it mind-boggling. And for us electrical members, could not understand it. So how come that it is so inconsistent? I think you should have presented it in such a way that it is easy to understand what's happening. So there's a follow-up question. Another question is about the question asked by Mr. Simon Lee. That is the links with Cao Yi Chow. I did look up the information. I know they try to rely on delegated authority to commence the project. So they have injected this item into the list. It has become an ongoing item instead of a new item. To a certain extent, I don't think you can avoid saying that it is bypassing the electrical. To me, I don't think it is a satisfactory arrangement. Well, regarding the completed projects, the way that it is presented, I think more than one member has said that the presentation should have been done in a better way. It was already brought up last time, and I hope that the government departments involved can look into that. But first of all, SD Director, can you tell us why that despite completion of the projects a long time ago, there are still outstanding payments to be made? There are 3 parts. There are outstanding payments that we have to talk about, covering like consultants' fees, or items that would require agreement after discussion, or they have to get the figures from their contractors and then they will claim the money from us. And then we have contingencies at the end of the day as to whether we really have to spend the full sum of $2.4 million, maybe not. But then when we carry out the project estimate, we do have to include such a sum. So not all the payments have been made. I won't say that they are huge sums, but then a project has been completed back then in 2020. 4 years have already passed. It is not satisfactory. Like members did draw your attention to specific cases. Can you supplement? We'll try to deal with that ASAP. But then if you want to be specific about individual items, I'm afraid I haven't got the information off the cuff, but we'll try to deal with the outstanding payments ASAP.
Please provide us with additional information after the meeting. Well, why is it taking so long? It shouldn't be happening that since a project has already been completed so many years ago. Well, if there are no other members who would like to ask questions, I would like to put this item to vote. For those who support PWSC 2024 to 2517, please raise your hands. For those who object, please raise your hands. I believe that the majority of members are in favor of this item. This item is approved. On whether the Finance Committee should further discuss this item, I now put this item to vote in accordance with Rule 41A of the Rules of Procedures of PWSC. This committee suggests the Finance Committee to further discuss paper PWSC bracket 2024-2517. I remind members that if we approve this item, it means that PWSC suggests the FC further discusses this paper. If this item is vetoed, that means we do not suggest the Finance Committee to further discuss this paper. For those in favor, please raise your hands. For those who object, please raise your hands. I believe that the majority of members support this item, so this item is approved. We suggest the Finance Committee to further discuss paper PWSC 2024-25 number 17. We now conclude the discussion of this item. Thank you, officials, for attending. We now move on to the next item. Please invite the administration to come in.
以前項目2呢係27
Item 2 is 27 TP Town Park with Public Vehicle Park in Area 66 Changkwon O and 32 TP Public Vehicle Park at Choi Shun Street, Sheung, Shui. Paper number is PWSC bracket 2024-2518. This paper suggests members to recommend to the FC the upgrading of 27 TP and 32 TP to Category A at estimated cost of 1.208 billion and 1.602 billion in money of the day prices respectively. The administration has, in relation to these items, consulted the panel on transport on October 29th of 2024. Members suggest the administration to bring this item to be considered at PWSC, and the highlight of this report has already been circulated to members via email on January 20th, 2025. In attendance, we have Under Secretary for Transport and Logistics, Mr. Liu Chen-shen, Mr. Edward Mack, Deputy Secretary for Transport and Logistics, Ms. Chang Si-ling, Principal Assistant Secretary for Transport and Logistics. Mr. Patrick Ho, Deputy Commissioner of Transport Department, Mr. Jimmy Poon, Assistant Commissioner of Transport Department, Mr. Ken Ip, Principal Project Coordinator of Transport Department, Mr. Billy Hoi, Senior Engineer of Transport Department, Mr. Alan Sin, Deputy Director of Architectural Services, Mr. Chris Liu, Senior Project Manager of Architectural Services Department, Ms. Smithy Chang, Senior Project Manager of Architectural Services Department, Ms. Elaine Wong, Chief Architect of Housing Department, and Ms. Fong Miu Ling, Assistant Director of Leisure and Cultural Service Department. Deputy Secretary or Under Secretary, would you like to speak? Chairman, members, we are seeking approval for the upgrading of 27 TP Town Park with Public Vehicle Park in Area 66 Cheung Kwan O and 32 TP Public Vehicle Park at Choi Shun Street, Sheung, Shui for approval. We have already consulted the panel on transport on October 29, 2024 and have received support from members. The government has always been trying to provide open space and public housing to serve public needs and to provide public parking to meet needs. And these two items can actually comply with the principle of single site multiple use. Let me first take you through 27 TP. The project site will provide 58 public spaces to satisfy the needs of commercial parking, and so this total estimate is about 160.2 million, and we are going to construct it together with public housing. So each these heavy goods vehicle, for each one it will cost around $3,700, and we're also going to provide 2,000 plus public housing units to meet housing demands. And also, as for 27 TP on the site located between Po Yap Road and Chi Shin Street in Cheung Kwan O, which is close to Cheung Kwan O MTR station. So this is actually close to the town park. It's actually part of the same park, but because we have considered that there is needs for public space and car park space, so on the ground level we're going to provide a garden, and then a public vehicle park will be underground so as to release more ground level space for public space, and at the same time to meet parking needs. This also complies with the principle of single site multiple use, and this together with the Area 68 development will become a large town park, and this will actually be a bike lane which will link up to the shopping mall and also to lead up with a promenade. And they will bring new face to the Cheung Kwan O South waterfront area. And it is expected that this will become a new attraction point in Cheung Kwan O. We would also see a landscape garden, a central pedestrian avenue, a covered piazza, and fitness equipment. And the public vehicle park will provide 455 public parking spaces for various types of vehicles, including private vehicles, light buses, motorcycles, etc. There are about 300 using the puzzle stacking system parking spaces for private cars to better meet the parking needs of both private cars and commercial vehicles. We estimate that the project to be 1.208 billion, and part of the private vehicle spaces would be automatic, and so compared to other similar projects, it is of similar prices. And this puzzle stacking system will actually provide 3 stories of vehicles stacked together, and we will be able to save about 19.5 million. And these expenses would also be used to maintain the town park. The automated parking system will actually see a lowering in cost. Each private vehicle current expenditure would be about 2,500. We hope to seek the approval of the PWSC, which afterwards we will submit this to the Finance Committee. We know that 32 TP will help us to meet public housing needs of the public, and 27 TP will provide public space for the residents in the area. And these projects are in line with the principle of single site multiple use, and at the same time we will be able to achieve optimal land use and also save cost. We're happy to answer your questions. Thank you. This paper covers 2 items. Well, I hope that the administration can try to consider separating items instead of trying to put this together. We are talking about 2 different districts. You are now including 2 items under 1 paper. And when members are trying to follow up on questions, they may either focus on 1 item or ask about both items. Well, we have 11 members who have indicated their wish to speak. Well, as there are 2 items under 1 paper, let's not break it up at the moment and just allow questions to be asked on both items. I hope the administration will consider separating these into 2 papers so that members' questions could be more focused. Let me now read out the list of members who wish to speak. Mr. Andrew Lam, Mr. Tang Fei, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, Mr. Adrian Hong, Ms. Lam So-wai, Mr. Duncan Chu, Dr. Stanley Lee, Mr. Lam Chen-sing, Mr. Kwok Wai-kong, Ms. Lillian Kwok, and Mr. Lee Chen-kung. Mr. Andrew Lam, please, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I have 2 questions on the TKO public vehicle park. In the paper, I don't see how this 1.28 billion will be spent on the car park and town park. I don't see the breakdown in figures. I've already asked the same question in the panel of transport. I now want to know what the breakdown of the figures are. I also want to know whether you have compared the price that if you do not use the automated parking system and instead adopt the traditional way, whether there would be a huge discrepancy in cost. That's the first question. Second question. The APS is being tested, and there are many different systems to be tested out. I know that cost is high, and you will not be able to recover the cost within a short period of time. I want to know whether there is any breakthrough in operations. Once you have contracted it out, would you be able to recover the cost? Do you have any figures to share with us?
Mr. Liu, the Undersecretary, I'd like to thank Mr. Lam for his question. First of all, regarding the breakdown of the costs, as well as the comparison of the costs, whether we have APS or not, I will defer to my colleague in a moment. Let me take the second question first. That is whether we can recover the cost. Well, if you look at it in a simple way, please look at the recurrent expenditure vis-a-vis the rental fees from the parking of vehicles. For Chang Kwan O case, the recurrent expenditure would be the recurrent cost would be $2,500. Repeat that, please. $2,500 per parking space. Per parking space. And then in the vicinity, we have looked at the costs or the fees for having a covered parking space. It will cost you around $4,200. In other words, when we recover, we can recover the recurrent expenditure. As to the long term, I think we can recover the cost involved in the construction, but it may take quite a long period of time to do so. As to the other question, I can defer to my colleague who will take that up, Mr. Sin. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member, for your question. For the first one, for the public vehicle park as well as the town park, it is a matter of 8-2 in relation to the split. It costs us about $200 million to build a town park and then $800 million to build a public vehicle park. As to your second question, when we compare the case with a traditional basement car park, well, if you would like to accommodate the same number of parking spaces, then in the case of a conventional basement car park, you need to excavate for a greater depth before you can accommodate 455 parking spaces. Roughly speaking, it will take us slightly more money. We'll have to spend 5% more if we build a traditional car park vis-a-vis one with APS. Follow up, Mr. Lam. I want to look at the operation. Now, currently it is said that the expenditure, or rather the operational expenditure, is about $2,500, and then in the market you have to pay $4,200 to rent a parking space. The car park operator has to make a profit, right? Now, according to you, it seems that while the operator can get a profit, the government would still be able to recover the cost, right? Well, for this supplementary question, well, for the recurring expenditure of $2,500, we already covered the operational fees as well as the profit on the part of the operator. So that's already the average figure per parking space. So currently in the market, you have to pay $4,200 for each parking space. So in our case, we can recover the cost. You'll have a positive rate of return. Next, Mr. Tang Fei. Of course, in the case of Chang Kwan O, if we are to get a town park, and as I can see from the perspective view of the town park, I think it is going to be a nice one. I think it is worth a while to spend the money to get it because it is going to be located between two rows of high-rise buildings. In Chang Kwan O, the building density is rather high, so if we can get a town park like a city lung, then it will be good. On the face of it, it appears to be quite a large one. Let me focus on the public vehicle park rather than a town park, which have my full support. Now, for the town park, we have a number of developments nearby. It is being surrounded by the wings, the park side, and then the Bohemia Garden. Now, for you to build such a large PVP, Do you think that you have a demand for that many parking spaces? You've got parking spaces in all the private residential buildings and right next door with the Choi MTR station. It is very convenient for the residents of the wings to take the MTR at the MTR station. So I think we have already got a sufficient number of parking spaces nearby, either in public parking space, public vehicle parks or the private parking park. So if you have such a large one in the basement, then are you expecting a lot of visitors driving to this town park from outside Chang Kwan O? If that is the case, do you think that it is environmentally friendly? And then for the PVP, you have got the APS. It is good. It is a very advanced feature. But what about charging stations for electric cars? We all expect electric cars to be the trend. It will be the mainstay. Of course, electric cars are yet to be upgraded, but then we'll be seeing fewer vehicles running on conventional fuel. So do you have charging stations here? Public officers. Well, as to whether fewer parking spaces will encourage people to take public transport, and so it will be a greener form of transport. Well, our bureau did give a lot of thought to that. We indeed encourage people to take to the public transport. On the other hand, there is an aspiration towards car ownership in our community. For Chang Kwan O, for the residential developments near to the town park, well, in the past, when we planned the site, the ratio of residential units and car park was deliberately lowered. So the parking fees are very expensive. So for the temporary car park that we have got now, it is hugely popular. In a moment, I can defer to the transport department on the details. As to the question about charging stations, we follow the existing guidelines for private car parking spaces and parking spaces for motorcycles and light goods vehicles. They have to provide charging stations. For APS, we do want to provide charging facilities, but there is a slight technical difficulty. It is not yet ready. But the electricity supply is such that in the future we can accommodate charging stations. The TD can supplement on the question about the demand for parking spaces. Mr. Ho, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Tang, for your question. Well, the Undersecretary has already said that currently we have got a temporary car park and it is heavily utilized. So in terms of demand management, we believe that there is a strong demand, and so we'd like to have a car park in the basement so as to meet the existing demand. Tell us how many vehicles can be accommodated by the temporary parking ground. About 600. Next, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful to Mr. Andrew Lam for asking the question that I would like to follow up. At the transport panel meeting, we did look at the final details. Now you asked for $1.2 billion covering both the town park as well as the public vehicle park. We support the government's principle of single site multiple use. So you're not only providing an open space for public enjoyment, you're also going to provide a public vehicle park. We do have a strong demand for parking spaces, but at the end of the day, we have to judge whether it is value for money. Now you are going to have an excavation up to 8 meters deep, and you have the puzzle stacking system in the basement. On average, $2 million per parking space, and the APS itself will cost $50 million. But we're told that including the operator's profit, it will cost $2,500 each parking space. It appears that it is good value for money. But then for the puzzle stacking system, the government has been using it for a couple of years. And in addition, you have collected information from the market. It is going to be a mechanical mechanism. You need to supply power to the system. I want to know when you have to replace it, because once you have to replace it, it will cost us another sum of $18 million. Is it money well spent? What worries me is that if we dispense with the APS, and according to the reply given by the Undersecretary at the last TP meeting, when we try to compare the use of APS and not using APS, we were going to get additional parking spaces. Last time you told us that you would give us 60 parking spaces more. But then it is going to cost us that much of money, and you have to spend money on the overhead, you have to spend money on the fuel, on the power supply. So let me follow this up. The Undersecretary last time told me that details will be provided in this PWSC paper. I'm disappointed. Maybe you would like to provide information verbally. And I'll come to my third question. The Undersecretary was right to tell us that as to why it would cost us that much money is because if you want to have deeper excavation, then it will cost more money. Maybe you can have 4 meters in the basement and 4 meters above ground. You don't need to have 3 stacks of parking spaces. If we want to keep the same number of parking spaces, according to my proposal, how much money can you save? So instead of having deeper excavation, you can have the structure above ground. Even though you can't have the full 360 parking spaces, tell us how many parking spaces we have to forgo. I think it's a matter of marginal cost. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. Thank you, Chair. Let me take the third question first. That is whether we can have it above ground for the puzzle stacking system, and how long afterwards we have to look at the question of replacement. I will defer to my colleague. Now, you told me you would like to know whether it is value for money. We want to maximize the use of the site. On the one hand, we want to meet the demand for a town park. We want to meet the demand for parking spaces. With the PVP, I think it will help with the local economy. So from this perspective, it is value for money. If we dispense with the APS and if we just have a conventional parking system, then there will be deep excavation. And we've been told that the cost will go up. As to whether we can extend upwards above ground and have shallower excavation, well, our design is such that we are already 1 to 1.5 meters above ground when compared with other grade structures. If you would like to have a story or 1.5 stories above ground, well, you have got pedestrian pavements on either side of the site, and then we have shops. If you are to build 1 story above ground facing the shops, then the shops will be facing a wall. It will affect their business because it means that people have to approach the shops from a corridor. And then according to our planning standards and guidelines, when it comes to town parks, it is expected to provide open space at grade, so we need to respect the original planning intention. Moreover, if you are to elevate it, in other words, people have to carry out their activities on the podium, on the raised platform, and there may be noise nuisance to the residents nearby. So we did consider many elements. Wherever we can accommodate the concerns in our design, then in fact we have already done so. We are already a meter or 1.5 meters above ground. And that's the philosophy behind our design.
最尾就係跟正另外一個題。
Chairman, before he follows up, I'd like to say that actually I'm not suggesting that you are just building it in just a vertical wall. It can be sort of like a slope. But of course, then you might not be able to have the same number of car parking spaces. It actually may be less 60, but then we can actually try to balance it out. This can actually be an option you can consider. Why I understand. Perhaps my colleague can explain to you whether this is a possible option. Mr. Sin, thank you. Thank you for your question. To try to incline it a bit so as to raise the height, you can take a look at the plan. It sort of looks like a mushroom at the moment. Large vehicles would be parked at the dome-shaped area, and it would be close to the road. The APS will be at the lower part of the mushroom. So if we are trying to incline it, then we would actually narrow the space. We would also need to leave room for the ramp for the roads, and therefore that would drastically reduce the number of parking spaces, and that's not ideal. Well, according to experiences, puzzle stacking system can be used for how many years? When would you need to change it? Mr. Ho, please. Well, in the APS, when we are maintaining it, we can actually use it for about 20 years each time, but during which you will need to change parts or upgrade it. Or according to your experience, how often would you need to do that? And that, as that would be an increase on the cost. Thank you for your question. Well, this is already included in the regular maintenance. Mr. Adrian Ho, I understand that a basement car park would be beneficial to residents nearby and to the shops in the vicinity. I am concerned with some potential questions as we have experienced extreme weather such as typhoon and floods. And we have seen the flooding of car parks in many districts. Kwan was one of the heavily impacted districts once. I want to ask about the drainage in this PVP. Would it be adequate to ensure that there will be no flooding under extreme weather? TD, we have considered all these problems. I could defer to Mr. Sin to elaborate further. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ho, for your question. We have considered flooding prevention in our design. The vehicle entrance is towards Bo Yap Road, facing the MTR, which means that it is the farthest location from the coast. we have slightly geared up the car park, and there would be a slight inclination when you're walking downwards. There is also adequate drainage within the car park, and in the basement there would also be pumps to pump out water in case of flooding. Thank you. Ms. Lam So-wai. Thank you, Chairman. On PVP in Area 66 and the for the PVP, I am in huge support. With the increase in population in recent years, we do have a higher demand for car park spaces. Last year, I have met with the TD to look into the demand for car park spaces. So with the 300 additional parking spaces in the park and with the additional 800 public spaces, it could sort of alleviate the problems in the area. There are a few points I would like to raise, however. First of all is the noise pollution during construction. Currently, it is a temporary car park, and on both sides you would see the wings and also Parkside, Twins Peak. The construction will be very close to these residences. During construction, you would see or hear a noise pollution towards the south. How do you ensure that noises could be minimized during construction? You would see ladies enjoying meals al fresco outside the shops, and that might have an impact on their desire to sit outside. Another question relates to charging facilities. We are moving towards zero carbon, and electric cars have become more popular. However, charging facilities provided here will only be at medium speed. In 4 to 5 years, that would not be enough to meet electric car demand. Could you actually install a few fast charging stations as well? Thank you, Ms. Lam, for your support. She's a district councillor, and of course, she understands the pressing needs of the residents. Well, how can we alleviate pollution during construction? The TD will take this question. For charging, we are working in accordance with guidelines to provide medium-speed charging stations. I hear your views to install fast speed or high speed charging. That will mostly be for the use of commercial vehicles because they would want to charge their car or vehicles as soon as possible. We have not yet implemented in our current design. We, however, could discuss this later to see whether we would install high-speed charging to support commercial vehicles as well. Mr. Seen, please. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Lam, for your question. We have considered the issue of pollution in our design. Especially when we are working in foundation work. We're not going to use piling, as that would give rise to huge noise pollution. We are just going to dredge to the and therefore that would minimize the noise impact. And in the contract, we would require the contractors to adopt better machinery to ensure that noises could be minimized. We would also use padding and board up the area to ensure that noises would not extend outside of the area. For dust, or other than boarding up the area to try to ensure that the dust stays within the area, when the heavy goods vehicles enter or exit the construction area, they would need to first rinse out their wheels before they could exit the site. And that could also help us reduce the dust. We would also use handheld devices that could actually vacuum up the dust released. Mr. Duncan Chiu, thank you. Chairman, I support both items, especially with adopting technology such as the puzzle stacking system and automated parking systems. My question is also on charging facilities. Many residents there are young families, and I'm sure that when they purchase a vehicle, they would be more inclined to purchase an electric vehicle. There would be 300 spots using the puzzle stacking system. I do think we need more charging stations because I'm sure that half of the residents would need that. But how can you actually install that with a puzzle stacking system? That would it might be difficult to do that. At the puzzle stacking system spaces, but of course there would be some spaces on the ground level. Perhaps there could be an advanced booking system for people to book the use of charging facilities. The puzzle stacking system is quite new in Hong Kong. There might be glitches in vehicles and also in this system. And during peak hours, car owners would be rushing to pick up their vehicles. What if there are problems during that time? Then how could you ensure that it will not affect other car owners? Oh, this is a very good question. We would look into the charging facilities, and I'll ask the TD to also answer the question on what to do when there are technical issues. Thank you for your question. Within the APS, we know that some solutions are being tried out. We are paying close attention to it, but at the same time, we are going to make good use of the APS to ensure that it could be mature. I hope you would understand the situation. Well, let's say there are some issues to the APS. The vehicle can actually be pulled down manually. So this is the contingency plan for APS. Mr. Stanley Lee. Thank you, Chairman. On the item on the PVP in Area 66 Cheung Kwan O, as a district councillor, my team and I have fought for this for over a decade, and we finally see this item being brought up to PWSC. The administration has also discussed this with us before bringing up this item. I do agree with the principle of single site, multiple use. We have to look at the projected estimate of the project. There are many taxpayers in TKO, therefore we have to be very careful. Or the administration said that the cost would be similar to other projects. Are you comparing that with conventional car parks or those using automated parking systems? We gave a suggestion to the administration before the meeting that for recurrent expenditure, we're talking the annual recurrent expenditure. But then the puzzle second system may not need so much money in the first year because the system would be new and there would be no need for maintenance. So could you actually try to cut down the expenses in the first year? We should try our best to not only look at expenditure. Is there a way for us to make money, such as adding in food kiosks in the area to try to bring in some rent? On impact of construction, I hear that you're going to try to minimize pollution, but to a certain degree, there would still be pollution. If this this goes ahead, can you actually talk with the owners incorporated in the vicinity and to ensure that this will not happen?
The costs being comparable. First of all, I thank Mr. Lee for his support and his question. Comparable means that we compare the cost involved in providing APS for the expenditure. You expect it to be of a smaller sum in the first year. I do agree. Well, for the APS, the first year's expenditure will be lower. Now, currently, we are sort of making a project estimate about the recurrent expenditure. I think they are spreading the amount of money over a long period of time rather than just for the first year. Even though they may not need that amount of money, we won't cut down on the amount for the first year. Mr. Lee also asked us to do more in terms of community liaison. Yes, I agree, and I can promise that we'll set up a liaison group to have a dialogue with the community. LCSD, Ms. Fong, please. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for your questions. We did consider your idea. There are shops nearby, quite a large number of them. So at the time of carrying out a design, we did not include the provision of kiosks. But then there will be a few years available. Maybe we can consider something of a smaller scale, like modular structures. Maybe selling sports items, like if cycling is going to be popular, then we can allow related products to be sold. And then shortly before commissioning, we can rely on the community liaison group to tell us about the needs of the local residents as well as visitors from outside Kwan. For the recurrent expenditure, I did ask for the recurrent expenditure to be compressed. Has that been factored into the paper we are deliberating today? Mr. Liu, Chair, we did consider that. And we looked at the latest figures concerning the APS in the market. And that's the background information for the figure in the paper. So your point has been taken up. Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Thank you, Chair. For the town park PVP in Kwan, it is not going to be a small sum for us. $1.2 billion against the background of financial deficit. Now, many people are really concerned about the way that you prioritize the projects. Well, of course, when we get a town park, it means that the environment will be enhanced. But then others may think that it is not really that indispensable. For Choi waterfront, the park has been completed, and you've got the Cross Bay link. So the environment is already very nice, and people may wonder whether at this moment of time we still need another town park. So what about the prioritization of this item against a background of financial deficit, while other projects have been on the drawing board for over 10 years? Is it because the committee has a stronger, louder voice, or you want to keep the construction industry afloat by providing more projects, more work to them? Another point is about the PVP. I do agree that there is a demand for parking spaces. Well, for Chixin Street in Changquan-o, it has been the worst black spot for illegal parking, and over 500 tickets have been issued over a certain period of time. I just wonder whether illegal parking can be eliminated by the provision of this PVP. And then in Area 67, you are going to get another parking ground and within the joint user complex. Altogether, there will be 1,300. But of course, we have to wait until 2029, 2030. But meanwhile, there may be short-term tenancy sites providing parking spaces. Some of them may have to be sort of reverted to the government. So I'm afraid illegal parking will still be a problem. And what is your take on this? Prioritization. Well, Ms. Lam So-wai did tell us that they've been waiting for it for over a decade. Undersecretary, please tell us more about this point. I would like to thank Mr. Lam for the two questions that he asked. There was a question about the demand for parking spaces as well as the total additional parking spaces to be provided, whether the demand can be met. I will defer to my colleague. Priorities. We did consider what you mentioned, Mr. Lam. Well, put it in a simple way, for the town park, it has been on the drawing board and been discussed for over 10 years. In between, the government did ask for the principle of single site multiple use to be honored. And we know that there is a strong demand for parking spaces, and that's why we like to have a vehicle park in the basement. Yes, we have got a waterfront park, we've got cycling tracks. I think together with this upcoming town park, it will be an attraction and it will help with the local economy. For the parking spaces, as Mr. Lam has said, we do know that there is a strong demand. So all of them being considered together, we believe that this item at the department level, bureau level, and the government level is in fact fully justified. And therefore, we approach the LegCo to ask for your approval for funding. Mr. Lam did ask whether it is because we haven't got sufficient work for the construction industry. That's why we want to do this. Well, indeed, I admit that this is indeed partially behind the rationale. Well, in the private market, yes, the amount of work has been reduced. Workers and even architects are facing difficulties. For us to launch projects of such a scale, which is a medium-scale project, I think it will help with the construction industry. I think that Mr. Lam was right. That is, in July 2024, we did look at the illegal parking problem in the vicinity. There were 190 of them. So when we looked at the demand and supply for parking spaces, illegal parking was already factored in, and that's why we come up with the idea of 450. What about in the construction phase? We have a temporary car park. When it is closed, then 2 other sites nearby can allow residents to park their vehicles. Well, 6 members have indicated their wish to speak, and Mr. Chen Xiu-hong would like to have a second round. I want to call upon members who are elsewhere in the LC complex to join us if you want to ask questions. Now, I want to exercise my discretion to extend the meeting time so as to complete the discussion of this item. So, Mr. Kwok, after you have got your answers, I would like to draw a line. So anyone within the complex wishing to ask questions, please indicate your request ASAP so that I can make a judgment as to whether we can really finalize the discussion today. I think if we only get the number of members appearing on the screen, then probably we can complete the discussion. So I call for your cooperation. Next, Mr. Kwok Wai Kang. Thank you, Chair. Well, departmental colleagues were really anxious about this paper. They did lobby for our support. For Area 66 of Chang Kwan O, we're going to get a town park and an underground PVP. The sum is huge, $1.2 billion in fact. Well, many colleagues are concerned about the total sum. For us in the PTU, we have always been asking for public parking spaces in all districts. We had the same position all the time. We emphasized that we would like to have parking spaces in the basement or underground. For you to maximize our land resources, we need to make good use of our underground space. In the past, the administration always rejected our suggestion by saying that it's too expensive, it is not cost effective, and we were turned down. Now, in this case, it's a sort of a piece of happy news, unexpected. You are going to rely on smart solutions to provide automated parking systems. We hope that it is something innovative and we can allow for more parking spaces. So in theory, in principle, you have our support. But of course, we have to mention that yes, we know about the case of illegal parking and how many vehicles are involved. But then this is underground. Mr. Adrian Ho, I think, mentioned the risk of flooding. I also want to talk about leakage. It isn't a matter of water rushing down the entrance. We have got a town park above ground. You have irrigation of the plants. I know that over time, say in the case of Wangpo Park, you have water leakage as a result of the irrigation of plants. I want to know whether the department has already thought about that, and what about waterproofing, and what about the insulation between the ground floor as well as the basement. Are you technically ready to prevent leakage in the future, or at least try to reduce the risk? So can you elaborate on that? And finally, for this basement car park, you are going to get a return out of it because you are charging rentals for that. I asked the department how long it would take to recover the costs. The answer was, I don't know. But then, of course, we have to spend money on the daily repair, maintenance, etc. Mr. Sin, please. Mr. Sin. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Kwok, for his question. Well, for the park, For the waterproofing of the ground surface, well, in fact, we had experience of having such parks or even the roof of our buildings. So we have a waterproof layer and we have got a thick concrete layer serving the purpose of waterproofing, and there will be sufficient water draining mechanisms, so the rainwater will be sort of drained away quickly and without any impact on the car park underground.
우리
Chairman, would there be large trees at this park, or would the trees be kept at mid-size or smaller sizes? I'm sure consideration will be given to leakage problems. Mr. Sin, can you supplement, please? We would plant trees at the park, and we would leave space for the trees to grow. We would provide concrete, and that should not affect the drainage of the car park. Oh yes, we have experts here who can also give you opinion on what trees to plant. Ms. Lillian Kwok, please. Thank you. I'm very happy to hear that this park will actually bring economical benefits to the district. So have you estimated how much it would bring? The car park will be a fee charging facility. Have you considered how many years it would take to recover the cost? Secondly, I'm a bit more realistic and pragmatic. The current car park is a temporary car park. We thank you for providing these spaces. Have you considered school buses? There are about 10,000 school buses in Hong Kong. And in 2003, there was an increase of one public school bus area, and now we have about 3 public school bus spaces for the 10,000 school buses in Hong Kong. But when you're taking down these temporary car parks, you said that you have discussed with the housing authority that you would keep the school bus parking spaces, and now we do not see the spaces for school buses anymore. School buses are not allowed to park in the schools, and now you're taking out the how are you going to handle those this dozen of school buses? There are 10,000 school buses in Hong Kong. There are only 3 public space for school bus in Hong Kong. Do you think that is reasonable? Have you also considered usage? When we go to the TKO promenade, we said we do not see a lot of people using the bike trail. Those who live in the wings would use their own clubhouse because that is within their private estate. Have you assessed that with the completion of the park, how high the usage rate will be? How do you actually balance this out? Because I'm sure that those living further away in the other estates might not want to walk over. Well, I don't think you can actually quantify the economic benefits, right? Well, yes, thank you, Chairman. With the town park, I'm sure it would attract more visitors, and that would bring in business for shops. But I apologize, we did not quantify how that would be in monetary terms. We estimate that it would take tens of years to recover the cost, as that would be affected by many different factors. We do believe that we'll be able to recover the cost and not suffer a loss. For school bus arrangements and how to handle the lack of parking spaces for school buses, I would let Mr. Ho take this question. Mr. Ho, well, thank you. In Area 67, we are going to provide about 25 spaces for coaches and large buses, and that would be put to use in the second half of the year. In Area 66, once we rebuild the car parks, there would also be 25 parking spaces for light good vehicles and coaches. I'm sorry, Chairman, the licenses for school buses is different from light buses, and many of them have been issued penalty tickets when they park on the road. They don't even have time to go to the restroom. I hope you would consider that. Ms. Fong, thank you, Ms. Kwok, for your question. I don't think you need to be too concerned with the usage rate of the town park. There are many gardens within the wings. This time, we are actually developing together with Area 68. So the entire park would be 5 hectares large. There will be dynamic areas for basketball, and we believe that this would be enough to attract those living both within and outside of the district to come over. The LCSD recommends the public to exercise more, and we believe that we'll be able to attract more people to come to. I think you should look into the development to see how you can also bring in more economic factors into the park. Thank you. Mr. Lee Chen-keung. Thank you, Chairman. Actually, the car park space is only 1 to 1.3, and then for car park space of commercial goods vehicles to car park space is only 1 to 0.64. So of course I understand where Ms. Kwok is coming from, because there are no spaces for school buses at all. In TKO public vehicle park, the spaces provided would actually cover many types of vehicles. This is actually a breakthrough. But I also have questions about the cost. If you only look at conventional parking spaces, it seems that the cost is much higher, because you're talking about 265,000 for a space. But you're now also developing a park. Can you clarify that you actually don't need so much money for a car park space? It's because of the park that has brought along a higher cost. The LCSD should also be more open-minded. Other than morning activities, you can also consider using the park for activities during the daytime or during the evenings to open up retail stores to try to bring in more people flow and to bring in more economic benefits to the area, because I'm sure more people would come in. I'm also a bit concerned about some areas. I see that there is a automated parking system. Members have asked about leakage and maintenance. There would also be machinery needed for APS. So what kind of AI would we be adopting when there are vehicles parked there and the drivers forgot to turn off the headlamps? Then how are you going to handle such a situation? How are you going to deploy manpower to handle such problems? And in Sheung, Choi, Shun Street, 58 spaces for heavy goods vehicle using about 100 million. So that's also about 270,000 per space. Do you really need so much money for each parking space? Or could you actually try to use a different kind of material to construct it, such as adopting the MIC method? Maybe that would be cheaper. Mr. Liu, at the end, at Choi Kai is parking spaces for heavy goods vehicles. So one parking space would be like 3 spaces for private vehicles, and that's only it's only just an area at the ground level. The high cost is due to the space it needs for each heavy goods vehicles. Well, taking aside the park cost, we're talking about each parking space costing about 1.78 million. And so that is similar to those of other projects. We have heard Mr. Lee's views. We would consider what was said about the LCSD. The LCSD has said that they would try to attract more people and to bring in more people to the area. For the APS, may I defer to Mr. Ho? Mr. Ho. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the question. There may be many different circumstances. A vehicle may suddenly see the APS running out of electricity. There's a manual lever to pull down the vehicle, and there would also be a recurrent expenditure for regular maintenance. So what is the figure for regular maintenance? I don't see a mention of this in the paper. Mr. Ho, it is already included in our projected estimate within the expenditure of about $2,000 per car space per month. Dr. Loy Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. There was a time when the government tried to force people to use public transport by providing less private vehicle spaces. However, the number of cars or private cars have increased during the years. Young families really need to use a car to take their children around or to bring them out to country parks during the weekends. Therefore, there is a need for private vehicles, and even though there are not enough private vehicle spaces, people continue to purchase cars. Well, this time the government is really being a bit more pragmatic to come up with an item with so many car park spaces, and also to build quite a large-scale town park. I am full support of this item. The Undersecretary has told us operation cost could be recovered. Hopefully, it would be a win-win situation for all. I have a specific question in relation to the car park. We cannot just consider car park spaces. We need to look into the entrance and exits of car parks. There are times during the day when the car park would be more congested. Have you assessed this situation for this car park, and how would you resolve this problem? I hope you would come up with a theme for the greenery at the town park. I know you would consider what kind of plants would be suitable to be planted there, and maybe Bohemia would not be a suitable choice. If you cannot plant Bohemia there, I hope that you could think of a theme for this park. Well, we use Bohemia as our emblem. But there really is no place in Hong Kong where we can see a Bohemia or a large cluster of Bohemia being planted in a certain area. This meeting should end at 6, and I'm going to extend the meeting for 15 minutes at the moment. Well, would there be a theme for the greenery at Town Park? Well, I know a lot of landscape architects. I'm sure that many of them would like to offer their help and advice. Mr. Sin can take this question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member, for your question. For the landscaping, we are going to have a thematic design when it comes to the choice of plants. In other words, in different seasons, there will be different flowering plants, and then they will be sort of attractive to people who want to take photographs. We have got the gum trees, we have got the Guangzhou cherry blossoms, etc. In other words, they will flower, they will blossom in different seasons so that there will be a variety. I think you have to enhance the quantity as well. It will be very picturesque. For Bohemia trees, many mainland cities also plant such trees, so please consider that for Hong Kong. And what about the traffic flow during the peak hours? Dr. Low is right to raise this point. We don't want to have traffic congestion at the local level. So we have a down ramp measuring 60 meters before you reach the entrance. In other words, the gate is not right at the roadside, and that can prevent traffic congestion. Mr. Benson, look. Well, regarding the paper concerning the town park as well as the PVP, it is going to cost us $1.2 billion, so we need to be prudent. I told the Bureau of my concerns, and I agree that the Bureau did come back to me on a few occasions. Well, we have been told as to why we should give support to this paper, owing to a number of reasons. First of all, a very strong demand for parking spaces. Currently, there is a temporary car park, and Changnam residents have been looking forward to this one for a long time. And then the town park would attract visitors from outside Changnam, so there will be an economic impact. And then you would have a sort of surplus arising from the operation of the car park after discounting the if you disregard the capital cost. So it's much better than running public markets. And then since there is a strong demand for the town park as well as the PVP, I want to know whether you would consider or whether you had considered other options. The basement would cost us $300 million. Is that already the optimum or the optimal choice, or can we not have it not in the basement? So would you consider alternative choices? And then I want to ask for some figures. The APS would cost us $83 million. Now, we have a total of 455 parking spaces. If we dispense with the APS, it means that we don't need as much as $83 million. Or in its place, how many more parking spaces can be obtained as a result of going for a traditional parking system? Well, if I may repeat my answer in a brief way, the town park is at grade, and it will be connected with Area 66 Park, which is also at grade. Yes, we all know that for us to have anything constructed in the basement, it will be more costly. Well, in fact, we have already raised the level by a meter or 1.5 meters. So we've raised it by half a story without jeopardizing the original planning intention. And at the same time, we can compress the project estimate. And I can also ask my colleague to comment more on this point. If we abandon APS and if we rely on the traditional parking system, how many more parking spaces will be available? I think the TD can tell us. If we want to have as many as 450 parking spaces, the basement has to be deeper, and it will be even more expensive than this APS-based system. We've been told that it will be 5% more expensive. Mr. Ho, anything to add, or Mr. Sin? Thank you, Chair. Regarding the project, well, the town park is huge. So we have to pave the floor. We need to pave the tiles. We need to locate the locations where we have plants. It's similar to 40 standard size basketball courts. Ms. Lillian Kwok would like to ask questions again. Well, I drew a line when Mr. Kwok asked questions. You haven't asked any questions? I think she did. Didn't she? I must. You want to follow up, right? Depending on the progress before I can consider your follow-up, Chair. Well, I think the TD might want to talk about the parking spaces, right? TD, anything to add? Thank you. Thank you for your question. If we abandon APS, then as the Undersecretary has said, we need to dig deeper. If we want to keep 455 parking spaces, construction costs will be higher, and then the project time will be longer. I think this point was made many times. Next, Mr. Louis Lun. Well, for the two items, there is the town park and PVP in Changkwon O, and then the 85 heavy goods vehicle parking ground in Shui. You have my support. We are going to provide 455 public parking spaces in Changkwon O. We are catching up only. There's a serious shortage of parking spaces. We all want more parking spaces in residential developments. Not that developers don't want to do that, but then we are prevented from doing so as a result of the configuration. Unless you have excavation underground, the cost will grow exponentially, and it's not environmental friendly if we try, say for example, to have an extra basement floor. So you have my full support. If you want to do it in this way, there is to have the PVP here. Now come to my question. Hong Kong is encouraging the use of electric cars, and then for your basement car park, I think last year in Seoul, electric cars burst into flames. So for electric cars being admitted to car parks, many cities are having second thoughts. In particular, basement car parks, they're really concerned about the fire hazards, because should an accident or should a fire break out, the consequences could be catastrophic. If I may ask the administration to tell us about the overall policy, how you're going to mitigate the fire hazard in relation to electric cars in basement car parks. Of course, we won't give up the idea of converting into electric cars, but how are you going to deal with the crisis? Mr. Liu, I would like to thank Mr. Lun for his support. Now, as to the fire risk in a basement car park, I would defer to the ASD to tell us the details in this case. Of course, from time to time, you may come across fires involving electric cars. I think the technologies are getting more and more mature in relation to fire safety of electric cars. I think the manufacturers are doing an ever better job, so I'm not worried. The DSD can tell us as to what we're going to do in relation to fire safety. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lun, for your question. For a fire in the basement where there is a car park, well, first of all, for basement car parks, we have fire services systems, and there will be sprinkler system so that the fire can be put out within the shortest period of time. Now, should there be a fire, there will be smoke or thick smoke, but then we do have a ventilation system to extract the thick smoke. The basement will be so designed in such a way that there will be compartmentation. In other words, there will be gates at certain locations so as to contain the fire risk and minimize the risk. Well, three members would like to have another round of questions. Other than Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, the other two made a request after I drew the line. As Ms. Lillian Kwok has said, at that time she hasn't even asked her own question, so she would not know whether she wanted to have a second bite. Well, at that time, we were rather sort of comfortable with time management. So at that time, if you had wanted, I have been generous with the time management. Now we've extended the meeting time by 15 minutes. I don't think I can accommodate so many members in the second round. I would like to finalize this item. I think for those of you who want to ask questions, now it seems that we have to have further extension of 15 minutes. If you don't object, I would like to exercise discretion and try to finish the discussion today. So if you don't object, I would then do so. 3 members, second round, I would be stricter about time management. Each of you will be given 3 minutes. All right? Mr. Chen Xiu-hong first. Thank you, Chair, for letting me have a second round. I'm concerned about Area 66, where we get the town park and the public vehicle park. I want to know more about the APS. Paragraphs 3 and 12 of the annex talk about the fact that tender has been invited in parallel and the tender has been returned. Now the government will test the electronic devices. How come that is not part of the APS? How come that it will be up to the government to carry this out and to bear the cost? There's the commissioning of the electronic equipment. And then I want to know whether the APS is going to be a patent design. If that is the case, then the patent owner will be the sole supplier of the hardware and software. In other words, will be at the mercy of the patent owner. And I hope that that won't be the case. Mr. Ho. Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank the member for his questions. As to the testing and commissioning of electronic equipment, this is upon completion of the construction. We need to test the various systems, like the access control system as well as the license plate recognition system. We would like to display the number of parking spaces available, so that will be covered by the so-called electronic equipment. So that's not under the $83 million. It will come from the public coffers already covered. Is it a patent design as far as the APS is concerned? Well, in fact, we are already using it in many car parks, so there are many models available. Can you assure us that for the hardware and software, we can get substitutes in the market easily? Yes. All right. Next, Ms. Lilian Kwok.
多謝主席啊，咁
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask about Sheung. All the public housing projects, when there are new projects, you would entrust the design and construction to the Hong Kong Housing Authority. Well, we want to know that if that is the case. And on the indirect fee of about 16 million, you give to the Hong Kong Housing Authority, and that would include the design, the administration, and the management. Have you looked into the percentage of, or the breakdown of the percentage, or is it usually you would just give out 12.5% and then entrust it to them? Is there any way we can reduce the cost to that housing authority, please? Ms. Wong. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Kwok, for your question. At the vehicle park at Sheung, we also adopt the single-site multiple-use principle. And we build the public vehicle park to meet the needs of the public housing estate. Well, in 2006, an agreement was signed between the Housing Authority and the Financial and Treasury Bureau, and that includes design, construction, and management. The design will be entrusted to the contractor, and so this is actually quite a common ratio. We adopt the same ratio. Well, for all projects. Well, would you need to actually review it, because you actually signed this in 2006, because it actually takes up a huge percentage. You haven't told me how the 16 million is broken down into three parts. Please provide us with supplementary information afterwards if you do not have it now. Can you give the answer now? Yes, design is 4.8%, administration 2.9%, and management supervision is about 4.8%. Well, other than design fees, we would also supervise the construction. We would ensure that there would not be overrun on cost and that the works is completed on time. You can review it actually since you have used the same percentage for many years. We are talking about public spending here. Please consider whether there are ways to reduce the cost. The Housing Authority can try to compress it a bit. All right, I'll now put this item to vote. Those who are in favor of PWSC bracket 2024 to 25, number 18, please raise your hands. Those who object, please raise your hands. No objections. I believe that the majority of members support this item. This item is approved. As to whether the Finance Committee should further discuss this item, I put this item to vote in accordance with Rule 41A under Rules of Procedures of the PWSC. The PWSC recommends the Finance Committee to further discuss paper PWSC 2024-25 number 18. I remind members that if this item is carried, it means that we suggest the FC to further discuss this item. If this is vetoed, it means that we do not recommend the FC to further discuss this item. For those who are in favor, please raise your hands. Those who object, please raise your hands. I believe that the majority of members object to this item. So this item is vetoed, which means that we do not recommend the Finance Committee to further discuss paper PWSC 2024-25 number 18. The items approved today would be submitted for consideration by the FC in February or after. As suggested by the government, the PWSC will hold an additional meeting in the beginning of February. And on February 7th and the Secretariat will tell you of the time later on. So I conclude the meeting. Thank you for attending.